first time Alan and I have met in person, but we spent hours talking on the phone. First for my book, that was in 2011, I think it was, that we talked. And then I had a very interesting phone call with him the night he announced that Exodus was closing. So we have that little bit of history.
We met in a fellowship group, and the first time Leslie walked in, she sat down at the feet of one of my best friends, and I thought, she's interesting, and I say all the time that I considered her.
So your thought really was she's interesting?
Yeah.
Because I don't know that many women who would want to be described in the first instance as interesting. So that implies there might have been a little bit of a Messiah complex.
Oh, of course there was. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, we do try to play Holy Spirit in people's lives. We do try to help people out of it. We do try to play Savior. If we can save the world, then that's better for us. Then we've done our part. And I think that's absolutely something that we're taught in the church. It's something we taught, that we're out to help people. And if we can help them get closer to Jesus or get better so that they can get closer to Jesus, then that's a win for us. And I don't believe those things anymore. I think the biggest thing I would say we regret, I think is that thing that I think we as the church are guilty of, and that is telling someone that they have to be a certain way or act a certain way or live a certain way in order to be acceptable to God. That they have to change something in order to be more pleasing to God. That they can be more righteous than they are by giving something up or choosing something different. And that is the thing that changed the most for us, was realizing we couldn't add to anything Jesus did on the cross. That someone changing their behavior or changing their beliefs or changing their sexuality or any of those things wasn't going to make them more pleasing to God. That they could be just as pleasing as I am, as who they are. And I think that's the thing, I think that's the root of the evil if I can call it that, for Exodus and for a lot of what we do in the church, and a lot of what I did at Exodus, was causing people to feel ashamed of who they are. It's difficult to know people who left the church and left their faith, and who feel very abandoned today because of the work that we did. And that's hard, and we regret that. Reparative therapy would certainly be at the top of the list.
So to borrow your war metaphor, right? The general has retired, but a lot of the little militias are still out there. What do you know about what's going on with the various Exodus affiliates? Because you did the conferences, but the independent ministries were doing their own thing. What do you know about what they're still up to? What do you have to say to the people who are running those organizations?
Well, there's two large organizations that have come out of Exodus. One split off before Exodus disbanded. That's called the Restored Hope Network. And that group of people left maybe 18 months before Exodus closed. And what they're doing is very public, so I know a lot about what they're doing. And a word I edited out of my book, and my wife is not going to like that I use this word because we try to be very, anyways, I find what they're doing reprehensible. There's no other way to say it. I find what they're doing reprehensible. There's no other way to say it. It's deeply harmful to people, and so I know a lot about what they're doing. they don't care for my opinion. And so that's hard.
So when you say God's cool with all of those, I want to ask you, I sit here as a man who's married to a man. Is God cool with all of that?
Before the foundation of the world, God knew you'd be married to a man. And I think so much of, yes, okay, I'll just say yes, okay. But I think before, so much of the church has been about hyperventilating. This revelation that I got in the last 3 years was God's not shocked. God's not surprised. He could never be surprised. He can never be anxious. He can never be afraid. And so much of what causes the church to react and overreact to your story is fear and anxiety that God doesn't possess and God doesn't have. And so I do think God's cool with it. I do think God knew before there was ever, millions of years before there was ever a Jeff Chew, that there was going to be a Jeff Chew who was married to a man. I spoke at a conference in Long Beach. Our dear friends, Sandy Turnbull and Janet Robertson are here, and they have this awesome church in Long Beach. And it's a gay church, and it was the first gay church that I ever spoke in and really ever was in. And I remember coming home from that experience in my own church, and my pastors being really excited to hear what it was like to be in that space. And being really excited about what I said about being in that space. And standing there worshiping in my church, having been in that church, and realizing for the first time every part of me was out in the open. That I could fully embrace the gay part of me. And I could stand in front of a crowd of people that I resonate with and be married to a woman that I absolutely am in love with and love every part of. It's a gay church, and it was the first gay church that I ever spoke in and really ever was in. And I remember coming home from that experience in my own church, and my pastors being really excited to hear what it was like to be in that space, and being really excited about what I said about being in that space. And standing there worshiping in my church, having been in that church, and realizing for the first time every part of me was out in the open. That I could fully embrace the gay part of me.
I never thought gay people were going to hell. I never preached that message. That was never a part of anything that I thought or felt or believed. I grew up Southern Baptist, and once you know Jesus, you always know Jesus. Was all, especially the young people, a certain age group of kids that I had known personally within Exodus, who not only were calling me one by one or taking me out for coffee or whatever and saying, Alan, I know you're going to be disappointed, but I'm gay, which never disappointed me. But then they would follow it up with, and I decided I don't believe in God anymore. And I'd say, dang it. Be gay. I don't know what my opinion is on most days. I wake up and I think, third way, God, aren't there like 50 shades of gray? And I don't know, there are things that I don't know. You could ask me a question and I might be hem-haw because I don't know how to answer it, frankly. I was with a group of friends in Grand Rapids a few weeks ago, Justin Lee and Wesley Hill and a bunch of the people who kind of make up an interesting conglomeration of people. And Justin was talking about side A and side B, and I remember just sitting there thinking, I'm not either. I don't want to be on a side anymore. I don't want to draw a line in the sand anymore. In fact, if you ask who I'm more comfortable with, I'm probably far more comfortable today with side A people than I am with side B people. Side B people don't like me. I'm not sure side A people do, but I don't want to be on a side. I don't want to draw a line. That I could fully embrace the gay part of me.
What do you see as the future of this conversation about sexuality, homosexuality in the church? And what do you think your place in that conversation should be?
I don't know. what I hope to accomplish is to help the church go further than they have. In my lifetime, we've already gone further than I thought we would. It's already better than it ever has been, I think, in my lifetime. I think the rhetoric on the fundamentalist side keeps going up, but it keeps getting smaller too. It's at fever pitch, but there's fewer people, which is a good thing. And there are more people who want to be a part of a thoughtful conversation. And I hope it goes further and further to the point where the conversation about sex and sexuality really is irrelevant.
Do you believe that orientation is mutable? Can we pray the gay away? And what do you say to those who say that they did?
In 2012, I sat on a stage with my friend Wendy Gritter and said, shout out to Wendy, 99.99999% of the people that I have met have not changed their sexual orientation. The point, however many zeros, one person or percent that I was thinking of, has since said, though she's happily married to a man, she could have easily ended up happily married to a woman. I would say sexual orientation doesn't change. Doesn't mean people cannot live outside of their orientation, really. But no, you can't pray away the gay. You can't change or go through a therapeutic process and fix whatever and come out something else on the other side. It's all those years that we thought that was possible, that certainly my story meant anybody could live this narrative. And what we found was that's not true. There were a lot of people who were living what seemed like our narrative who aren't living that anymore. And so what I would say is live your own story. Enjoy your own story and let other people live their own life. Let other people figure out how they want to live their life. And love them in the midst of figuring that out. And since we closed Exodus, it's a 16 to 22-year-old crowd, maybe 16 to 23-year-old crowd. Most of them in that college age, some of them dating women, men dating women, who are asking, should I get married? Should I do this? Should I fix this? Or parents saying, what would you have me tell my kids? And it's love your kids. Love them for who they are. And for you, if you want to marry a woman, if she's your first choice, and you can honestly say she's your first choice, then take it to the next step. But if not, figure out what is your first choice. and figure that out with God.
What possibilities, opportunities, hopes do you have for the global church? The closure of Exodus has had a significant influence in the current conversation in the US, filters a wee bit into Canada. But what about the international ramifications of, say, the last number of years of Exodus? We think of Uganda, and I think of Lausanne and all of the delegates there. What do you hope can happen now moving forward in that international context?
Yeah, and, what I hope can happen is good question, yeah.
That was a really good question.
What I hope can happen is some of what I think is happening. For instance, I think closing Exodus has severely hurt a lot of those Exodus organizations that still exist outside of the United States. I'm thinking of in Australia. It has severely hampered and hindered their work there. I think it is having an impact, hopefully in Asia to some degree, although that's a very strong place where Exodus existed. And so I think there is a lot of confusion because some of those exoduses that we didn't have control over are still in operation. But I constantly get emails and inquiries from people, especially in South America, who are kind of finally realizing, okay, it's not the same thing. And what is it that you're saying that's different from what they're saying? So I think there's been, I think it's handicapped those ministries, and it's helped, I think, in many respects, the church to kind of come out of the closet and own some of the work that needs to be done. I think that will continue to happen. And hopefully there's an ability for us to help and to have a platform in other places across the world to encourage the church to step up and really be a part of putting all of that truly out of business and dealing with it in a way that is far more life-giving and gospel-centered than it currently is when that's a part of the conversation.
I am not sure if you consider yourself part of the gay community. Yeah, I hear you speak about the gay and lesbian community and probably is confused or do not understand if there is a divide there or not. If you are being included, you put yourself in it or not. And I'm just curious, that's all.
That's a really interesting question. Yeah. People have asked me, so are you gay? Are you ex-gay? Are you straight or whatever? And none of those are things that I feel like, certainly not the ex-gay, but the gay or the straight, I feel like to choose a label really denies the ability for me to be all of who I am. I think I'm more than any of those things. I think all of us are more than any of those labels for me. So am I a part of the gay community? I don't know. I don't know. It's a great question. Yeah, and I think for me, the whole thing about Christianity, that is the fundamental part of who I am. I love Jesus, and that says everything about me. And so if I want to be identified, those are, and we talk about that in the book, the labels that people want me to wear. And the labels that are easier, frankly, for me to wear. But the labels I choose not to wear. And so the ones that are easy for me are the ones that I live every day. And so is gay a part of who I am? Of course it is. You know, if I'm going to be a part of it, Leslie's going to be a part of it too. Leslie and I navigated together, honestly. And you know, there is a lot of pressure. You know, there was a lot of pressure within Exodus to call myself straight or ex-gay, which those aren't things that I will call myself. Even though Leslie and I are very happily married in every sense of the word and always have been.